PNC's flag bearer, Bernard Mornah, remains disqualified from this year's election as the High Court dismisses his case challenging the Electoral Commission's decision. Also, with parliamentary clash, which many of you have been following the last 48 to 72 hours, a lot has happened regarding Parliament. So because of that clash, it is expected that in less than 24 hours, when the Speaker takes a final decision, many are expecting to see what exactly he will be saying. We will bring in a colleague who will walk us through the dynamics, the NDC, the MPP seats they currently have, what is likely to happen, and historically, which of the parties have had the majority and how majority legislative positions have influenced our politics going forward. We'll also hit the campaign trail and bring you Constituency Watch. We just might be playing the constituency or analyzing your constituency. You want to be on Election360? This is the show. I am Martin Esiedudate. Stay with us for details. All right, let's delve straight into the details now. We're starting from the courts where the People's National Convention flag bearer, Bernard Mornah, still remains disqualified from this year's elections, that is the 2024 presidential elections. This is because an Accra High Court has dismissed a case he filed challenging the disqualification from the polls. Lord Eduasari, my colleague, is in court and has joined us to update us on the latest. Lord, thank you for your time. What reasons were adduced for the court's decision?
Well, Martin, good morning to you. The judge and the matter, Justice Richard considered 5 key issues that he addressed in his reasoning for disqualifying or maintaining the status quo as they were. Now, he indicated that one of the issues was that whether the EC provided specific grounds for the disqualification, also whether he was heard and provided room, which is Bernard Mornah, to correct the errors, that whether the disqualification was irrational, whether judicial review should be granted, and then whether the anomalies are the only grounds for disqualification. Now, in explaining, he indicated that from the document that he was provided, it showed that Bernard Mornah was given the form. The EC did indicate the areas that required changes or corrections to be made. And indeed, Bernard Mornah in his form also indicated that he filled it and returned it. And so it's actually evidence that he was aware of what the issues were. It cannot be the case that he can say that he did not know, especially since everything was listed per the document that the judge said was available. Now, he indicated that it was actually the fault of the PNC and Bernard Mornah because they should have been more meticulous and vigilant in filing the nomination form rather than returning to the EC and blaming them for it. He also chided PNC, saying that they've been filing or filing nomination forms since 2012, and so they actually have experience in the presidential nomination, so they should have done better in helping their candidates to fill the form. As far as the errors were concerned, the issue about the multiple signatures signed by the same person as adduced by the Electoral Commission was raised. Now, the judge indicated that from the ocular evidence, or from looking at the form, it could be argued that the signatures, which are supposed to belong to 4 different persons, were similar, and so it could not be a coincidence. So he indicated that now these anomalies were evident or made known to Bernard Mornah, and so it cannot be the case that he expects a second chance to rectify them because there are timelines to it, which was all indicated in the form. After all that, he did say that he is dismissing his request, and that's what it should be. Now, Bernard Mornah and his lawyers themselves haven't been too pleased about the situation. The lawyer, represented by Harold Atiguba, who was holding plea for Professor Atiguba, indicated that the judge, in his reasoning or in his decision actually considered a different document from what Bernard Mornah and his team submitted to the court for him to consider and rule on that. And so, although they listened to the court, they did not exactly agree with the decision of the court. Bernard Mornah himself has been saying that, well, this is a travesty of justice, and so he will be going back to the Supreme Court to review this decision by the High Court. Martin.
Well, that's interesting to hear that he intends to appeal or at least get some further clarity. But what have the lawyers of Bernard Mornah been saying? What exactly has their reaction been?
Well, Howard Atuguba spoke to the media right afterwards. He said that even looking at the forms that were given to Bernard Mornah, the ECs themselves had issues. They made certain errors on their forms. So it cannot be the case that the person setting the exams made mistakes and cannot, allow for mistakes to be made and give room for corrections to be made. And then he also indicated that the form that was submitted, the statements that were hoping the court will consider were from the returning officer and not the chair person of the EC, and so that wasn't considered. And that, for that reason, they are saying that they will still go back to the court. He feels that this they've been hard done by, and they go back to the court, the Supreme Court.
This in perspective. The first letter that was written on the 13th of September 2024 and addressed to Mr. Mornah was to the effect that there were errors on certain pages of the nomination forms. Now, they had identified those particulars in the 13th of September letter. Now, the forms were given back to our clients. They corrected them and resubmitted. The communication on the 20th of September, which was actually the reason for his disqualification, and I want you to get this difference. There was no particulars provided in that second letter of the 20th of September, which was the basis of Mr. Mornah's disqualification. So the two letters are not the same.
So you disagree with the court when he says the two are the same?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so if the court had come to the conclusion that the two letters were not the same, obviously the conclusion would have been different.
All right, so that's the lawyer for Bernard Mornah concluding that report that was brought to us by Lord Eduasare from the court. So if you're just joining us, this is Election 360. Story coming in from the courts is that Bernard Mornah, the flag bearer of the People's National Convention, remains disqualified from the 2024 elections. And in subsequent bulletins or in subsequent programs here at your election command center, we'll do further analysis to see what the next line of action would be for the PNC and Bernard Mornah. Away from that, a national poll, which is quite fresh from the Global Info Analytics, shows that John Dramani Mahama, the flag bearer of the National Democratic Congress, is likely to win the 2024 elections with no runoff expected. A look at some perspectives from that particular report. I will walk you through what exactly the numbers have been saying from that latest report from Global Info Analytics. And to give you further analysis of it, I've been joined in studio by Alfred Okanse, who will help us walk through the numbers now. Alfred, thank you for joining us.
Always.
To start with, so maybe we'll come to this specific figure later, but walk us through some of the key findings from Global Info Analytics, who, conducted a phone poll where they called a random group of about 1,000 people and tried to tease a few questions, ask them a few questions and got answers. And these are the numbers or the extrapolation, as they call it in surveys. That's what they've put together for us. So walk us through some of the
It's important that you put the issues in perspective, that this is a phone poll, as in that they picked the phone, sampled 1,000 people, and put up a phone call to them. Because normally you would have people who would raise concerns about polls that when you're approaching someone in person, the probability of the person not telling you exactly what his or her choice will be on election day is high. But for the phone call, the identities are relatively hidden. And so the probability of they being accurate in their response will be higher than doing an in-person poll. So that's the reflection that we are seeing right now. And it's been consistent. In fact, Global Info Analytics, Musa Dankwa, has this is the 9th poll since 2021 that they have done with the phone calls, and it's consistent over the period. If you see this, 9% of NPP voters say they intend to vote for John Mahama. And he's doing this juxtaposing what the previous outcome of the phone poll was as against the current development. So to understand the current changes and the trends, you would want to also pay attention to what was the outcome in the previous phone call poll and then what is reflected in right now. So those who previously, about 9% of them who said that they were going to vote for, that's Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, now just 5 weeks to the election say, look, we've decided to change our decision and we are going to vote for John Dramani Mahama. That's instructive. 87% of the respondents actually said they were going to vote for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia at the time.
Yeah.
But you see as well that that's John Dramani Mahama, not Dr. Mahmoud. And then 1% of the voters said Alan Chikojo Chemanting, and then 3% say that's Nana Kwame Bediako.
Yeah.
And let's pay attention to what Nana Kwame Bediako is doing, because in terms of his appeal and reach, impact and focus on the message and the strategy to get to the voters, he's been consistent over the period. And it's not surprising that in a number of the polls that Musa Dankwa has conducted, it's either he's at par with Alan Chemanting or he's getting a little bit more than Alan Chemanting in terms of those who have responded that they are going to vote. Right. 97% of the voters said that they were going to vote for John Dramani Mahama.
So it's interesting how these numbers have played. And to put it in perspective, what we gleaned from the data set is that the polling also put into context the people who had previously, like you indicated, voted for MPP and NDC. So the earlier numbers are people who voted NPP, now saying that a sizable chunk, which is 9% of the MPP voters, said that they were going to vote for NDC. Now, this number that you have on the screen now, this data set, shows that out of the total number of those who voted for NDC in 2020 or in previous elections, 97% of them say that they will still vote for the NDC.
That's right.
And it's interesting to know, so 9% of the MPP people said they'll vote for NDC. However, in this data set, 1% of people who voted for NDC say now they will vote for Dr. Bawumia of the NPP. And then, like you indicated, there is Nana Kwame Bediako and then Alan also in the mix as well.
Essentially, so what that means is that, at least based on what you have just pointed out as well, is just about 1% of the voters who decided that they were going to vote for NDC have been lost.
Absolutely.
And in the previous instance, you'll see a lot more that the NDC has gained from
in the camp of the
MPP. And then also with this one as well, you're seeing those who had initially indicated that they were going to vote for the NDC, just about 1% saying they're going to vote for Alan Chemanting, same percentage for Nana Kwame Bediako. This is just a summary of how the picture looks like. That is the total respondents, the sample size. And in fact, the margin of error for this poll was about between 1.2 to 2%. That's relatively commendable, to say the least. But if you look at it, the summary, 63% of the voters say they believe that Ghana is headed in the wrong direction. Now, this is consistent with the previous phone call poll. Now, that previous one also showed that about 60% of the respondents said that the country is headed in the wrong direction. Right. Why is this question important? It's important because it would influence the decision of voters. And as you do know, that leadership is everything. And we're going into this election to elect a leader who will steer the affairs of the country. So if the respondents going into an election say, you know what, as we speak at the moment, the country is headed in the wrong direction, that, from a polling perspective, obviously would influence the subsequent outcomes. As in those who are saying Ghana is headed in the wrong direction, that's about 24%. And then those who say they don't have an opinion. And in most cases, those who say they don't have an opinion are those who are either members of the ruling government and they do not want to be heard or seen to be going against the party that they are affiliated to. So they would rather want to stay in the middle. And it's been shown in a number of the polls that we see as well. And if you recall, when there was a specific by-election this time around in the central region, which was heavily contested in the Asin North constituency, you'll see that a number of the respondents in that poll, about 40% of them said, you know what, I don't have an opinion. And on that day, the poll results was a shift.
Otherwise, yes.
Because a number of the people who said they didn't have an opinion now ended up voting for James Jachakwesen. Because on that day, on election day, they are the ones in the booth.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the decision that they are taking. It is just between them and then the ballot paper and the ballot box. So they can then express their views much further. So that's actually how the outcome of this poll looks like. And it is not very different from what he has done in previous instances, at least from January this year.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Alfred Okansi, helping us understand the latest poll coming from the camp of Global Info Analytics, one of the polling institutions that certainly we here at your Election Command Center will be working closely with as we get into the 2024 election. Now, let's talk about developments in Parliament. The last few days almost every major media outlet has been very heavy on developments in Parliament. Right after this, we'll dive deeply into the dynamics of parliamentary elections. All right, welcome back. So we are going straight to Parliament and what the numbers are saying regarding the 275 seats and how they've been shifting left, right, and center.
Depending on where you stand, it will be 271 or 275.
Absolutely.
Especially because of what the current
It's interesting to know that now Ghana's Parliament, a tale of two majorities, isn't it? All right, so let's start from the genesis, we should say.
And the root of all of this is the numbers game. And that's one thing that we don't have to take out of context when we're doing this analysis. Because the NPP, if you recall, in the run-up to the 2020 elections, could comfortably and easily give away the Mornah seat because they had a supermajority in that 7th Parliament. Now, with this particular 8th Parliament, we're seeing that because of the numerical representation, which has been described as a hung parliament, every party would jealously guard their numbers. And that's why there are those who say that, well, the party hasn't written to the speaker, so what right does the speaker have to declare these seats vacant? The NPP will not do that this time around, because think about it. Look, I'm going to write to the speaker that three of my persons, in fact, 2 of them have decided to go independent.
Yeah.
1 is independent. I want him to contest on my party ticket, and so, declare their seats vacant, as was in the Mornah case. They're not going to do that.
Oh, political suicide.
It will be suicide. But then again, the law does not demand that they should necessarily write.
Yeah.
But even a member of parliament can notify the speaker if the members themselves who have decided to go independent do not take that decision of stepping aside themselves.
Right.
That's what we're seeing playing out. And in fact, if you look at the trend when it comes to parliamentary control, the highest level of parliamentary control in terms of the super majorities that we have had over the period was in 1996. After the MPP boycotted the 1992 election with a stolen verdict that was declared, we see in the 1996 election that the NDC won 131 of the seats in that parliament, and the MPP won 63. The difference of 70 was the highest, or is the highest, that we have had in the Fourth Republic,
right,
in terms of parliamentary difference or between the majority and the minority. In that same election, the CPP won 1 vote, and then the PCP won 5 of the votes in there. If you fast forward to the year 2020, the year 2020, as we are saying now with this 8th Parliament, gives us the lowest level of control, as in the lowest level of control by the majority in Parliament, where the NPP has 137, the NDC has 137. The independent candidate, in this case, the second Deputy Speaker of Parliament, until recently, decided to do business with the NPP. So then they had the majority of 138. That was a thin, very, very controversial majority you'd want to see it. But then we see how the business of Parliament has played out over the period. And that is why we're having this situation as we're faced with right now. You'll see that as well play out in this particular instance where if you do strike the average between this and this, that's the 1996 Parliament and the 2020 Parliament, you get an average of about 29 seats in difference. So over the period, there has not been any situation where, on the average, until 2020, a majority in Parliament would have anything less than 29. If you do the analysis over the 8-year cycle, in every 8-year period, you'll see a certain change when it comes to the parliamentary control and the parties that either lose seats or win. In the year 2000, when there was that handover between or from Jerry John Rawlings the late to John Ejekum Kufuor, we saw the highest loss in terms of the majority control in Parliament.
Right.
The NDC lost 41 of their seats. And that is also notable because, if you recall, in the year 1996, they won with a difference of 70 seats.
Yeah.
So think about it. Going into another election, you win this, you lose this much.
That's
right?
quite significant.
It's very significant. And then fast forward in the 2016 election, that was the lowest with 19 seats that were also lost. In the year 2000, this is how the picture looked like. The NPP then took over the majority in Parliament with 99 of the seats won as against the NDC's 91. But think about it. In the year 1996, there was a difference of 70. So the NPP flipped that particular majority and then now became the majority with a difference of 8. That was a big one for them. In the year 2008, the NDC closed up. We saw the difference of 6 votes when the NPP also dropped with 6 seats. And then in the year 2024, guess what? Who controls Parliament? That's the question on the minds of people going into the dying days of this 8th Parliament that never stops giving us. The beginning of this Parliament was with chaos. The end of it, we're going to see a lot more of it as we're seeing right now. As we speak, the majority or the NDC caucus in Parliament say, you know what, we are the majority. The NPP caucus is maintaining their hold. They say, we are the majority. Tomorrow is a showdown to look at.
Certainly a showdown to look at. And we here at your Election Command Center, our job is simple: to let you be a part of the national conversation. Our best bet will be to break down the numbers, try to make sense of it, and you, the electorate, the final decider of who leads this country, either from the executive or from Parliament, you have to be part of this show so you can also make your thoughts known on the comment section on the various social media platforms that we have for you. Tomorrow is just a few hours away. Tomorrow is heavily pregnant with a lot of unexpected outcomes, and we will definitely be in Parliament to update you on how it all plays out. This is Election 360. Stay with us. When we return, we'll be delving into the Constituency Watch. Probably constituency we're going to might be yours. Maybe just a hint. It is one of the constituencies that has caused the conundrum in Parliament at Memphis Central. Stay with us. Welcome back to Election 360, and we are live from our studio here at Adesawe in Accra. Like we indicated, it's time now for Constituency Watch, and today we are focusing on one of the constituencies that is part of the bigger conundrum in Parliament, which is the Memphis Central constituency. Now, despite the Electoral Commission's disqualification of Joanna Jan Kujo, who is the NDC's candidate in the Memphis Central constituency, the supporters of the party are rallying behind her strongly for December 7 elections. Their unwavering commitment remains strong, undeterred by these current challenges. There's a report by Pa Kojo Peters.
Memphis Central constituency, one of the 17 constituencies in the Western region, has historically been a stronghold for the National Democratic Congress, with a voter population of 70,000, primarily comprising cocoa farmers. The Amenfi Central constituency, since its inception, has consistently been represented by male candidates from the NDC. This year, however, the party elected its first female candidate, Joanna Jan Kujo. After winning the party primary in May 2023, her eligibility was questioned, leading to a court case that prompted the party to annul the primary election and order a rerun. Joanna Jan Kujo was re-elected through acclamation after her contender and incumbent MP, Peter Yao-Kwachi Aka, withdrew from the race. However, the current MP, Peter Yao-Kwachi Aka, has decided to run as an independent candidate. On October 16, the Electoral Commission disqualified Joanna Jan Kujo as a parliamentary candidate due to a pending court case. The party at the national level has filed an injunction against the Electoral Commission to prevent them from printing ballot papers for the constituency. The Amenfi Central NDC Constituency Communications Officer, Obed Emisa, describes the Electoral Commission's move as a deliberate attempt to frustrate their candidate.
The news from the EC disqualifying my candidate, and then in nutshell, the candidate of Amenfi Central Constituency NDC is not a welcoming news. However, it is not something that is going to demoralize us. We are going to continue the job that we are doing. We are going to make sure we are going to campaign vigorously.
Supporters believe Joanna Jan Kujo is the best candidate to drive development in the Amenfi Central constituency.
We are all very optimistic that this issue will end on our favor.
It would be a devastating blow if Joanna Jan Kujo isn't allowed to run for office. Her initiatives are truly transformative, and it's remarkable that she is already making a significant impact even before officially becoming a member of parliament.
A former member of parliament for the area from 2005 to 2017, George Kofi Arthur, described the decision by the incumbent Peter Kwachi Aka to run as an independent candidate as driven by personal interest.
The person in question is not a full-blooded NDC person. He is a known person from the other side, from the MPP. And in fact, when he was coming, we did a lot to stop his contest, but it didn't work for us. So what is happening today is not new to me.
During her recent campaign visit to the Kwekubwa electoral area, Joanna Jan Kujo spoke about the conduct of the incumbent MP, Peter Kwachi Aka.
There is a person who has betrayed the trust of Amenfi Central constituent by switching from National Democratic Congress to running as an independent candidate. His actions resemble those of Judas, as he has abandoned the party that once supported him. We urge our fellow NDC members to be cautious and not follow his instructions.
She encouraged electorates to support her and have faith in the process.
Regardless of your party affiliation, whether NPP, PNC or CPP, I am urging everyone to unite behind Joanna Jan Kujo in this election. Let's put aside our differences and come together for the betterment of our constituency.
All right, so that's what has happened on the grounds in the Amenfi Central constituency. But what are the numbers saying? And as it stands, the National Democratic Congress, the story we just brought you is from the camp of the National Democratic Congress. The lady who is their parliamentary candidate has been disqualified by the Electoral Commission. However, the NDC supporters there say, irrespective of that, they will still be campaigning for her in the hope that the party leadership can actually go to court to get this, the Electoral Commission's position overturned. But let's look at what the numbers are saying. Since the inception of voting in the Amenfi Central constituency, it has predominantly been a safe seat for the National Democratic Congress, the NDC. So, per the parliamentary data, the NDC has won consistently. 7 out of 7, they've won all those elections. The MPP has not won any of the parliamentary elections in the Amenfi Central constituency. Same thing for the presidential results. Since '96, it's been a very safe seat for the NDC, and the NPP are still trying to make inroads to ensure that at least they change this number of 0 on the side of the NPP to at least 1. And that's what's happening, I hope looks likely to happen in the 2024 election. So the NPP is pushing to ensure that they're able to turn the fortunes of their candidate, either the parliamentary or the flag bearer of the party in the Memphis Central constituency, to get their votes. In the last election, the 2020 elections, these are the total number of votes that were shared in the constituency. Now, the NDC won by 26,100. That is the number the NDC won by. If you compare that to what the NPP got, 21,000, in fact, it tells you that there's been a close up of the numbers. Compared to the 2016 elections, the NPP numbers were much less than this. So it means that the NPP in the Memphis Central constituency has shored up a bit more of his numbers. And the candidate of the NDC, although he won, his numbers relatively have reduced. Still, a win is a win. And because our parliamentary system is first past the post, whoever, if even he had won by just 1, he's still the candidate of the constituency. Now, this is the vote difference, 4,000. And the NPP is hoping to claw as much as they can from this, following the discrepancy in the camp of the NDC. The current member of parliament in the Memphis Central constituency is an NDC individual. Now, if you are NDC, how come now we are talking about an NDC parliamentary candidate and it is not the Peter Ackerman? The story behind it is that he has now filed to go as an independent candidate, which gives a leeway to the NDC, whose candidate is Joan Nana Kujo. So she's hoping that because of the goodwill and the fact that the constituency is a safe seat for the NDC, they will be able to rally behind her to get through to be the member of parliament. But there's a question mark hanging over her head. So this is the vote difference that they are both going to try and battle out for. What it means is that it has always been a 2-horse race in the constituency. This time around, it is split to 3. The NPP candidate, Patrick Hodgson Aponting, is hoping that because of the infighting in the camp of the NDC, he will be able to sail through. However, the NDC's current member of parliament, who is going independent, is still in the race. So it means if the numbers he polled, the 26,000 is anything to go by, if he's still able to maintain that number, it will be a challenge for the NPP candidate and whoever will also be contesting. But we are uncertain whether or not Joanna Nana Kujo will be on the ballot for 2024 elections or December 7th. Will she be there? If she is there, and because it's a safe seat for the NDC, she's able to garner all the votes the NDC constituents in that area gave her, it's likely that these two gentlemen will not be seeing even the floor of parliament. However, if she is kicked out per the current situation, then it looks as though the constituents of Memphis Central may end up having a male as a member of parliament, and it could be any of these two, the independent member of parliament and the NPP's member of parliament. We are waiting to see what the NDC will be doing regarding Madam Joan Kujo. All right, so that's it for the Memphis Central constituency, and we'll definitely keep very close eye on it for you in the coming days to see what, especially the leadership of the NDC, as they decide to take this matter to the courts. And staying in the camp of the NDC, it is targeting some 94% of votes in the North Tong constituency of the Volta region. Member of Parliament for the constituency, Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa, says the party has what it takes to bring development to the area. Faisal Abdul Idrisu is our Volta regional correspondent and has come through with this report. All right, so he's actually joined us for a quick chat. Faisal, thank you for joining us. First of all, talk to us a bit more about the constituency, the North Tong constituency. In the last few months, what comes to mind when you mention North Tong is the Volta River spillage and the disaster it caused there. So paint a picture for us, the positioning of the constituency, and later we'll talk a bit more of the political dynamics there.
Well, things are looking a bit calm and better as far as the issue of the disaster in the North Tong area is concerned, except that there are a number of people who are still living under tents called safe havens. These people are yet to be provided any alternative accommodation the last time before over the weekend, the member of parliament for the area actually announced that he was announcing some 100,000 package that will cushion them for individuals who wanted to get accommodation. That is, temporary accommodation in terms of rent. They could access that fund and get themselves settled until a more permanent accommodation is provided for them. So as far as the disaster is concerned and the people who were displaced, things are looking a bit more better than it was in the recent past.
And the president, I beg your pardon, the parliamentary candidate Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa is hoping that he is able to get 94% of the votes cast. Why that number? Why not 100%, since we know it's a very comfortable seat for the NDC?
Indeed, the North Tong seat is a very comfortable seat for the NDC. Since 1992, the NDC has emerged victorious. And of course, since the emergence of Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa onto the scene, the seat has been, consolidated by the NDC. The last election, the presidential candidate, John Dramani Mahama, polled some 41,847 plus votes, which actually amounted to some 90.06%. For the parliamentary candidate, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, he polled some 41,000 plus votes, marking some 89%. But he told us that going into the 2024 election, given the recent disaster issues and how government handled it, its own performance in parliament over the last past few years, is very confident that the party will be able to garner some 94%. He's leaving the 6% for the MPP candidate and for all other factors that may come in. But he's very confident and resolute on amassing some 94% of the vote. And I tell you, the North Tong constituency has some 67,000 voters on the register currently going into the election. That number is exactly what he meant he's going to take the 94% out of.
Our operation 94%, we mean it, and we are determined to achieve operation 94%. We will not be complacent, even though in 2020 we won in North Tong by 89.7% and set a victory margin record. We want to improve on our 2020 performance, and we are determined to make sure that operation 94% is achieved in 2024.
All right, so clearly the parliamentary candidate Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa is hopeful of even extending the over 90% that he got in the last election. Faisal, we know that at that rally that took place over the weekend or so, the concern about who has the majority in parliament came up. What exactly is the position of the NDC? We know they say they are also the majority, but how did the conversation play out during the rally?
Well, before I tell you that, let me also chip in this. The member of parliament, and for that matter, the parliamentary candidate for the NDC, talked about the fact that, he mentioned the issue of development and emphatically mentioned the Aveime rice processing factory and then the Japan Textile Limited, which he said that once the NDC comes into office after the December poll, they are going to inject a lot into it and ensure that they revamp these two factories to ensure that they provide jobs for the teeming youth in the constituency. Now to the issue of who is majority, who is minority in parliament. Sam Jata, the member of parliament for Lingo Pram, who actually was part of the rally on Saturday, indicated that parliament is an independent institution, is an arm of government that is clothed with all the powers and the law to make certain decisions, such as what the speaker did in parliament last week, and that the decision by the court to actually suspend the speaker's decision, they, as NDC in parliament, will not abide by it. They will ensure that they protect the independence of parliament by ensuring that whatever decision the court had taken does not really play in as far as this issue of who becomes majority or minority is concerned.
And because God wants to show a sign, on Thursday,
even before the December 7 election, the NDC has become majority in parliament. And let me use this to serve notice to the people of Ghana, including the Supreme Court of Ghana. The Parliament of Ghana is an independent arm of government. We are not going to be cowards on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we are going to Parliament and we are taking our position as the majority group in Parliament.
That's Sam Jatha George. Faisal, we'll have to leave it here. Thank you so much for that report from the North Tong constituency, which we also focused on, and some of the key highlights that came out of that rally, where you just heard Sam Jatha George, the MP for Ningo Prampram. And it's interesting to see that parliamentarians are going to the constituencies of their colleagues to also help them or push their campaign as we get towards the December 7 general elections. Tomorrow is a few seconds away. We'd wait to see what the Speaker will say regarding who the majority side is in the Parliament of Ghana. And Election360, what we do is trying to crisscross the entire country and help you also follow what's happening. Although you may be in a major city, Accra, Kumasi, wherever it is, we try to come there and pick your thoughts. This time around, we're going to the Upper West region. And with less than 50 days to the crucial December 7 elections, the youth in that region, the Upper West region, are saying that their vote decision in the general elections will be influenced by certain parameters, including jobs and youth empowerment being at the very top of it. So our Upper West regional correspondent, Ibrahim Wangara, has joined us for a quick, narrow discussion on what exactly the youth focus will be going into the elections. Ibrahim, thank you for your time. What more can you tell us regarding your interaction with the youth and their key focus going into the elections?
Yes, thank you, Martin. If we look at the Upper West region, a few months ago, the Upper West Regional Youth Parliament have taken it upon itself as a body to conduct a research work among the youth in the Upper West region, just to see some of the things that are most likely to influence their decision in the upcoming December general elections. And based on their findings, the research was conducted across all the 11 municipal and districts within the Upper West region. And they targeted, or the respondents they got was around 520. And among these 520 respondents, they are saying that is the youth. Majority of them are pointing job creation as the first thing that will influence their votes, followed by youth empowerment, and then effective governance, improved road networks, and security. So among the 10 things that were given to them, these were their top 5 issues that are most likely to influence their vote pattern in this upcoming election, that is among the youth in the Upper West region. But we can take a listen to Lukman Tahir, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Idea Path Consult and a lead person when it comes to the research work that was conducted in the Upper West region.
Cultural party that mentor young people be a decision, and 47 strongly agreed. And another 78% were concerned about political parties that manifesto will focus chiefly on employment and development initiative, where a novel environment will be created. Mr. Speaker, other interesting analysis has to be with 55% saying they are going to evaluate the candidate of the political parties. The parliamentary candidate or the MP seeking for re-election is still worth our mandate to go back. We are not going to look at the symbol or name of political parties. They are interested in evaluating who is contesting.
All right, so Ibrahim Wangara, thank you for that quick update and report from the Upper West region. And talking about the region, this is how they voted over the last few years. In 2000, and then again, it is one of the seats that the NDC seemed to be, one of the constituencies or the regions, I should say, that the NDC has had quite some predominance. In 2000, they had 62%. They dropped in 2004. So in 2000 and 2004, that was when the NDC won the national elections. So although John Agyekum Kufuor led the NPP to win the national elections, when you look at the specific votes that came from the region, the NDC is still quite dominated. And in 2008 to 2012 will still be the NDC. Now, it's actually even increased in 2012 for the NDC. They fell in 2016. That's when a second NPP government came into force under the leadership of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in 2016 and 2020. And because of the shock in parliamentary seats when it comes to the 2020 elections, where NPP lost quite a sizable number of their majority seats, the NDC's numbers shot up and they had 67% in 2020 elections. 2024, the question for the gods would get to see how that is going to play out. So that's the Upper West region in perspective for you. And based on that, we're bringing the show to an end. Thank you very much for watching. There is more news on our website, 3news.com. Plus, we have further analysis of what has transpired on the show and on our political landscape on the website for you. I am Martin Esiedudati. Tomorrow is very pregnant. You want to be with us as we dissect and analyze what will happen in Parliament. Have a good morning. Hasta la vista.